There is this latest news of some Chinese hackers who actually breached data.
Imagine someone cracking into OpenAI.
And they did this attack like a backdoor attack that you don't even trace where the attack is coming from.
There'll always be bad guys.
They're just stealing this data without you knowing that the data is being stolen.
AI can be fooled.
And they used this backdoor attack called the Brickstorm.
The company that is worth billions of dollars, it poses serious security risks. Hello, biters. Welcome to another episode of the Tech Byte podcast. And we're happy again to be here. I'm your Faustina.
Hello, everyone.
Hello. So in today's episode, we'll be talking about information systems and cybersecurity generally. And I know it sounds technical, but stay with us a bit. Our aim here is to break these things down and make you understand how this is useful, especially in many AI companies and even in our day-to-day life. So Faustina here is a PhD student. I don't know if we know, but yeah, Faustina, you're a PhD student at the University of Tartu. Can you give us a bit more context into what you do?
Thank you, David. I'm a PhD student of information security, and I research on the security of artificial intelligence and how to manage security risks in these systems, and also generally how we can use artificial intelligence to secure systems for companies.
Yeah, and I think, people say, we take your jobs, and just to piggyback, I think one of the things that will not go is the fact that there will always be security threats. And, as humans, whether physical or digital infrastructure, we must put those security, methods to ensure that our information is safe. And I think Faustina is going to talk all about that. So, I don't know. Well, can we even start with what it means to have, information security? What is this thing about and why is it necessary?
Information security is very important. It deals with how we protect our information. Mm-hmm. So whether it's a physical asset or digital asset, whether it's our basic paperwork we do, just how do you secure this information? That's what InfoSec is all about. And generally, information security is something that people sometimes play with because you don't know how important your data is. Because, for example, in companies, you have this data that you give out. How are you sure that your data is, secured? That's what InfoSec is all about. So we try to look for ways to secure these critical assets of humans or systems generally.
Yeah, and just aside, when we talk about security, I'm always wondering, why is there always security? Why can't we all cooperate as humans and say everybody be good? Yeah, we'll all be good guys. But unfortunately, there will always be bad guys.
Yes,
looking forward to exploit the system.
Yes, and I mean humans are complex beings, so generally we have to be very meticulous about it.
Yeah, and you have to be above the game. You don't have to be. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think security has to be proactive. Yeah, yes. You have to be a step above them to ensure that they don't get into your systems. Yeah, but again, it's the unfortunate reality. There always be the bad guys, and if you don't have to take your job, I think you should come to cybersecurity.
Thank you.
Because there will always be cyber attacks, I assure you. And I even think in fact, what do you think, right? I think the way AI is going, there'll be more cyber attacks than before, because now you've put these things in the fingertips of an average person, don't you think?
I think AI, security in terms of AI, it's something that we need to also be very careful about because, again, this artificial intelligence is in the hand of everybody. Mm-hmm. So it means that everybody has access to actually causing harm to systems or even to person, Yeah. So, yes, I think we need to take it seriously in the implementation of how we secure our systems or how we secure this artificial intelligence. And, that brings me to how do we even manage these systems? Because when we have artificial intelligence being deployed into different applications or different softwares, then you begin to ask the question that where is the bad guy coming from? Yes, but sometimes you see that the hackers themselves even develop softwares or bugs using this same artificial intelligence, and that's what makes it very, very, very complicated in terms of artificial intelligence. But yeah, generally, I think we need to be very proactive, as you said, in how we secure systems. information security generally deals with confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So basically, the confidentiality, who can see your data, right? Who sees your data? Privacy comes into play in this scenario.
Yeah.
And then you talk about integrity. How are you sure this data is correct? Yes. Okay, you've given me this information. How am I sure that this data that has been given to me is very correct? And also, how available is this data when needed? So it's not just there because it needs to be there, but it's there when actually maybe a particular company or a particular resource needs that data, then it's available to them at that time. So yeah, that's just what InfoSec is all about. When we're able to cover the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of our assets, whether physical or digital, then we are already at least one way to securing ourselves or the systems.
Yeah, great. And I mean, when you talk about these things again, it's interesting now companies like OpenAI or in fact, I remember when we were younger, we used to have, PlayStations, or not PlayStations, but on PCs, we download all these games, and then instead of paying for it, we'll kind of get the cracked version, and we get it for free and we play. So, it's imagine someone, for instance, crack into OpenAI. The company that is worth billions of dollars,
Yes.
they are gone, right? Because
Yes.
their core business proposal, business functionality, it's at the AI models they have. So yeah, it's also important to secure the whatever digital assets we have, and then I think that's where you guys come and play.
Yes.
Nice.
Yes.
So I mean, let's drill down a bit. How do these companies, how do we have our information secured online? What are the processes they do?
So basically, it depends on what type of assets that is to be secured. There are different forms of controls that can be used. We have, in terms of, let's say, confidentiality, you can already apply some encryptions or differential privacies where you have to add a little bit of noise to the data to make it not traceable to a particular extent. And we also have already preventing, like, for example, where you have attacks that you have somebody is eavesdropping to your phones or through the Wi-Fi, for example. And those type of attacks usually are secured using the secure secret layer protocols, the SSLs. And there are different actually controls. It all depends on what are you securing at this point. The company has to first of all understand what are they securing, what asset needs to be secured, and only when they get that, then they try to trace through some methods such as threat modeling, where you understand what is the impact this threat does to the system, or what vulnerability does it exploit. So vulnerability is like the weakness to the system. So what weaknesses did the attacker or the bad person see and was able to exploit to get that attack done to that system. So when you have companies coming to secure your data, if it's online or physically, they first need to understand what data is to be protected before even going forward to trying to protect that data.
Yeah, but something like passwords, how do they secure passwords? Because I mean, I would think that maybe Google, for instance, knows my password, right? Or my bank, for instance, knows my PIN. Is that correct?
Not necessarily. They have some protocols that they use for some cryptology protocols that they use to secure these passwords. So basically, it's not in every company, but because some companies have these databases where they store these passwords.
Yeah.
But for some companies, they can encrypt this data and from both ends in such a way that it's only when it's needed that it can be decrypted. And there are some points of encryption that you can't easily even decrypt. So it really depends on how the company wants to apply their own security measures. So you have forms of like encryption. How do you encrypt this password so that we don't have like a leak somewhere at the end of the day?
All right, that's good, because I mean we see a lot of news of, say, Microsoft had a breach or something, some big company have a breach, and if you see those kind of news, you wonder, is it like now my password is somewhere?
No.
Yeah, but I mean a forward-thinking company would encrypt their data.
Yes.
So if someone hacks into their database, they will just see ashes basically. Yeah, that's nice. That's good to know. At least your passwords will not get leaked.
Yes, don't be scared. But again, it's also good to make strong passwords. You don't have passwords that have personal identifiable informations like your name, your date of birth. I'm sure some people use that as passwords, but to make very strong passwords, you need to add, symbols like maybe an art or a comma, numbers, letters, uppercase, lower cases. Those are really very strong passwords that are very difficult to hack. Not that they are unhackable, but
Yeah.
of course it makes it difficult to really understand what this particular person or user has used as a password.
Yeah. I mean, that's very correct because see, I remember when I was younger, I mean, not anymore, but yeah, you use very simple passwords. Yeah, we think that passwords are personality, but you don't know. Even simple passwords, you can also use a simple password, right? So when a password becomes popular, people can guess your password and
Yes,
that's the idea, right?
yes.
Because if you add, for instance, a special character somewhere, now you've made it a bit difficult for people to guess.
Exactly.
Or apply some brute force, analysis there. So I think it's important again, guys, stop using simple passwords.
Yes.
Try to make your password slightly complex. But there's this problem with remembering passwords. And I know, people now use 2FAs and all that, but then do you advise people to use 2FAs or cram as many passwords as possible, or a password manager maybe? Yeah.
Yes, I think what, for example, these tech companies are doing right now is to have this password manager, which is really good. So basically, you have to keep them there, and they're able to help you remember your passwords even when you forget them. But it's also important to tell you that you should please protect your manager, because if, for example, there is a bad person somewhere and the person gets your device and the person is able to go through your manager without for example, a 2FA on it, then it's a problem. So basically your data is leaked and every other thing that comes with it. So as much as you use the password managers, try to also have like this two-factor authentication also attributed to it.
Yeah. So 2 things, guys, as takeaways. If you can, try to use password managers. There's Google Password Manager. Then I think Microsoft has their own. So all these major companies, I think even Apple.
Apple has a manager.
They have their own
Yeah.
password
Yeah.
managers.
Yeah.
So try to use password managers.
Exactly.
And use very complex password. In fact, what I do when I want to type a password to a website is either Google suggests it to me and I just accept their suggestion. I don't know the password myself and I know it's saved on my Google, or I type nonsense myself, right? I copy it, I save it to my Google Password Manager. Again, I don't know the password. So those are good practices, guys.
Yeah, but that's also tricky, because what if you forget it and forget your 2FA to your manager?
Yeah.
But again, that's why we have forget password, and then you're able to change your password. But generally, yes, passwords are something that is common. This is something we use in our day-to-day activities, and just to protect our information. So we just need to really take it as something that is crucial. We need to be mindful of how we actually create these passwords or use them generally.
Yeah, great. Because again, guys, these companies may not necessarily know your password. So if you really forget it, that may be all there is. Most of these companies may not know your password. So if you really have forgotten it and you don't have access to maybe your email, you can't forget your password. Do not think they would show your password like that. Nah, it's encrypted in their servers. Yeah. Anyways, so let's shift gears to some of the threats that AI brings on board, especially without everybody now using foundational models for their company. I mean, if you're a company now you don't have AI somewhere, I think you're slow. Yeah.
Yes, I mean, if you're not adopting it in the fast pace at which it's going, then it becomes like in the market sense, then it looks like you're slow in adoption.
Yeah.
But yes, AI risk is something that companies are already like looking into, because again, these models, not all companies, actually, to put it out there, not all companies train their models themselves, because to train a model needs a lot of computational efforts, and probably these companies do not have these computational systems or warehouses or where they can actually train this model. So what they do is to go to places like Hugging Face and get foundational models and then fine-tune. Fine-tuning is like retraining the data based on the maybe data of the company to make it suitable or to align with what the company is doing. So that's what some of this company does. And one of the biggest risks to actually having foundational models is this risk we call the supply chain risk. So basically the supply chain risk is a risk that deals with the pipeline. How do you get something? So if you don't know the generation of where a data is coming from, where the model is coming, then and then you deploy it into your system, that's a supply chain risk, because it deals with also like the components. What are the components of how how this software was made, or how the AI model was made in this scenario. In places like Hugging Face is like open source, as I know. So basically, people just send in their models, and you don't know who is developing these models. There are no signatures to these models to say, okay, this is where this model is coming from. But because the model just does something that relates to what you want to do. For example, you want a chatbot system, or you want to integrate it into your health app or something like that, then you get this model. But probably there has been like some attacks like data poisoning, where the attacker actually poisons the data set by putting data that can maybe give wrong information to the user, and cause a bigger issue to the end user. And companies do not have an idea about what this how this data came to be, the data that was already used to create this model. How did it come to be? What are the parameters used and all of that? So those are the things that companies are missing in terms of AI. As you deploy it, you have to also track your supply chain. How did the model come to be? This is a very basic question I expect that companies are asking these days.
Yeah, that's a good one. And it's interesting because when we see models or we see final products, we think the company did everything from scratch. But most of the time, that's not the case. Yeah. If you have, for instance, this microphone, maybe it's made in China, but this phone may be from another country. Maybe even the process of making the phone may be from another company.
Exactly.
So eventually, while China made the finished products, the components used in this product were made from different countries.
Exactly.
So is that what you mean by software supply chain?
Exactly. That's what I mean by the software supply chain. So basically, you have your vendors, you have your libraries, you have different softwares coming together to build a bigger vision. Yeah? So if you don't know where these components are coming from, just like you use the microphone as an example, then it becomes a problem, because, for example, a bad guy might have infiltrated into some of those components before deploying it into the major or the final product. So if, as an end user, I am using a final product, I'm making updates, for example, and there is a malicious update, it means that it comes with the final product, and then I take this update and my smartphone or my laptop or the bigger information system malfunctions, then that's a problem. So it means that the attacker has already won in this scenario, So,
and funny enough, that's without also even getting to your system. People spend a lot of time on firewalls and all that stuff, making sure your system itself is solid. But in this case, the point here is they don't even need to get into your system.
And that's why supply chain is like the new perimeter of security, because for normal InfoSec, we understand that, yes, we build firewalls. Firewalls are like guards, like when you have a fence and say, okay, you can't jump into my fence, right? So we understand that those are the basic ways to actually protect our systems from malwares, But why the supply chain is tricky or important in this sense is that it comes from a pipeline. So you don't even know what part of the supply chain is affected. It's for example, if you're talking about the AI model, is it from the parameters that it was trained on? Is it from the model itself? So it becomes like, the question becomes very broad. Like, how did this attack come to be? Like, what process did the attacker take to get that data into that system or that component? So it's really it's something I think companies or developers should look into already.
Growing up, we know that open source is like, if you want to ensure that you have a good product, to use open source product, because everybody can see what you're doing, and then it's kind of safe, because if there's any issue, people will find out. But don't you think AI poses a risk even with open source codes where, I don't know. I feel the fact that now everybody can code and deploy, and everybody just deploying AI servers everywhere, AI codes everywhere, don't you think open source itself will be affected and poison other people's code?
Open source data or code has been there for quite some time. And with AI, maybe we should also ask if AI can be seen as open source, like AI data sets. For example, when you ask ChatGPT and then it gives you an AI generated code that comes from itself.
Yeah.
Maybe that's also open source. What data did it gather to bring to give you that this is the, for example, the code that you should use for Python programming or Java or C#.
Yeah.
So I think open source codes are affected in this sense because some AIs are already trained to already give malicious syntaxes or malicious code to developers, and with developers now, relying a lot on artificial intelligence for at least basic code development, then it becomes a problem in that pipeline.
Yeah, that's correct. So, I mean, if you guys have not watched our last episode, maybe you should check it out where Anthropic Claude said that 0.8% of the responses were bad. And again, in cases where developers are relying without checking the code, then they can deploy, bad code into a system. So yeah, that's a very good one. So the point here is, even if you're using AI, don't over-rely on it as developers. Open source codes, again, make sure that whoever is moderating the repository checks whatever PR is sent in. There was this thing I saw on Twitter, by the way, where I think it's more of an hacking bounty or something, where if you can show vulnerability and fix it, they'll give you some money. And now with the use of AI, everybody's using AI code and pushing it there.
Exactly.
And then the CEO had to come around on Twitter and says, no longer accepting AI-generated code.
That's even something we should actually. I mean, it ties up to most of the discussions we've had: the creativity, the reliance, if it's taking your job. Because before AI, we had like these bounty hunters who actually study or crack these vulnerabilities to understand what are the basic vulnerabilities of how an attacker can actually infiltrate into a system. But now you already ask artificial intelligence to give, and you're not even sure if the code that or the vulnerability check or pipeline that was given to you by this artificial intelligence is correct. So I think that news is really very important for the development world in general, that we don't really over-rely on the code generation of artificial intelligence. We really need to also know what we are doing. We need to know the basic things that, has the basic structure or syntax or the basic concept of what you want to develop,
yourself, yes.
so that you don't have you don't push, because when you even push it into your system, then it becomes a vulnerability. So you don't push these vulnerabilities into an already existing systems. And,
especially in open source where other people use it and
use
then,
it exactly.
Blindly just trust open source code. So interesting how open source is no longer kind of safe. So all these things, except the moderators are very strict with the kind of codes that are
deployed,
and ensure that, because like you said, pipeline sometimes not just the pipeline. The pipeline can be infiltrated, and that can lead to problems whoever uses the open source code. That's interesting. I think there was there an event where this kind of thing happened, where a major data breach that had to do with software supply chain?
Yes, I mean, there was, I think it was in 2020 when we had this solar mind attack, where it even affected the United States White House because they were using this system from SolarWind. So you can see how big that event was. It was really a very wide event, and the news carried it everywhere. So that's an example of a very solid supply chain attack in this sense. So
I mean, I saw that and I was wondering. It's crazy because I know the FBI would have done a lot of due diligence to ensure that they are, or whatever federal agency was affected. Anyways, I don't know if the FBI, but they would have done their due diligence to confirm that their code or their system is solid. But some third party, maybe even fourth or fifth party, if I put it that way, had the vulnerability in their code, and they affected them. So it's interesting that we have to be very careful, even for software updates. Don't just update you. Make sure you check the release notes, see what has been changed, what has been updated before you update any library.
But I have a question for you, because when you talk about release notes, do you think that, for example, if an attacker infiltrates a system generally, I'm just asking a general question, do you think that they can actually just create a release note and just write that this is what is happening, but it's not what is happening in the sense? It's still like a supply chain, but I'm trying to pick your thoughts on it.
I mean, so that again, that goes to the moderators, whoever is going to accept the PR or whatever, to confirm that you not just take whatever it has in as text, but also look at the code itself and see the changes that have been made. For instance, if you see a code with 10,000 lines removed and 2 lines added, you should not push it,
yes,
because that's scary, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
So sometimes when, for instance, I'm using ChatGPT and okay, help me fix this code to do something, and it's editing like 100 lines and removing 100 lines and adding 2 lines, I'm scared. Like, what the hell, man? So yeah, I guess it's just about being more meticulous with how we accept whatever AI code we are using and ensuring that it's good. Yeah, I mean, we talked about how this is affecting even major US agencies, and I'm guessing that now there are strategies, solutions that people have to ensure that they tackle this, sort of supply chain attacks, because I think it's a big deal. Yeah.
Yes.
So can we maybe talk about some of these solutions that exist currently or what people are developing on?
Yes, I mean, one of the biggest solutions to supply chain risk is actually the software bill of materials. So basically, it's like your general bill of materials where you talk about the components of a particular system or components of a particular software. Mm-hmm. So you give details. For example, when you buy food, you see the labels, you see what's inside the food, how did it go through the process and all of that. That's what companies need to do or need to check. They need to have this software bill of materials that has the different components of a particular system. For example, the model, how did the training data come to be? Mm-hmm. What type of training data was used to train that model? Those are the things the company needs to ask. So basically, having this software bill of materials is important. Another very straight out pointer I can give is Signatore. Mm-hmm. Sigtore, yeah. They have this.
I think Sigstore, yeah.
Sigstore, yeah. Sigstore, yeah, exactly. Thank you. So Sigstore has this very good way of signing, actually. So in security, we call this like integrity. So basically, to affirm the integrity of, for example, a model, the developer signs it to show that this is real. So for every update that is done on the cycle of that model, mm-hmm. A signature is given. And for those who are like interested to actually see, you can actually check their sector.dev. Yeah, I guess that's their website, sector.dev. Mm-hmm. Yeah, sector.dev. You can check them. They are a very good company, and what they do is to actually sign this. Creates like a signatory or a track record on, mm-hmm. on this product. And I think that's a very good way to actually fix the supply chain attack.
Yeah, and while we were talking, I was also thinking there may be a way blockchain can come in this situation, because no blockchain to be kind of open ledger where everybody sees what's happening. So mm-hmm. you cannot.
Yeah, blockchain can be a plus in this situation. To be an
interesting thing to explore. I don't know if some companies exploring it already, but I think it will be also a nice way to have that bill of material that you have mentioned.
Yes, and you know that with blockchain already, like when blockchain came out some years ago, it was really a very big deal. With AI coming in, I think when we merge blockchain and AI, is going to be very productive in how we attack all of these threats in the future.
Yeah, great stuff. I don't know. I think we are beginning to round up. It's been a sweet conversation. Is there anything we have missed or we want to talk about?
I mean, we can talk about this, guys. There is this latest news of some Chinese hackers who mm-hmm. actually breached data. So basically what they did was to steal the data from US legal tech firms for over a year. And they did this attack like a backdoor attack that you don't even trace where the attack is coming from. They're just stealing this data without you knowing that the data is being stolen. It was like a big news, and they used this backdoor attack called the Brickstorm. So it's also like a form of attack. And what they did is to access emails of different individuals. So basically, your email, david@yahoo.com mm-hmm. or at gmail.com is being watched or is being infiltrated, and whatever email you get, they get it, and they're able to manipulate the information around that. But yeah, I think the US firms or the US legal firm found this very early, and they were able to detect that these Chinese companies targets these organizations using this Microsoft Entra ID Enterprise mm-hmm. to access these accounts.
Yeah, single sign-on.
Exactly, the single sign-on stuff. And that's why I also think that is single sign-on even the most effective way of actually protecting, again, passwords of our email address.
If you have access to my Microsoft, you have access to every other thing that I've done single sign-on.
Exactly. So it's also
convenient.
It's convenient, but
security-wise, maybe not the best. Yeah.
Not the best actually when you talk about security. But yeah, those are like some of the interesting news that has been developing in terms of like the US national security and all of that.
Yeah, interesting. And what you were talking as well, I remember, now we have MCPs everywhere for AI tools. And I saw this tweet where someone was saying that people can, not hack per se, but kind of fool an MCP to steal your emails. So for instance, if you have ChatGPT and you connect your ChatGPT to your Gmail, right? Say you have ChatGPT access to your Gmail. Someone can send an email to ChatGPT, send you an email rather, and tell you, check the other inboxes and summarize the key information for me.
Wow.
And now because ChatGPT is kind of, tied to that email, is able to generate all that and get all your information. So it's kind of risky to have AI, being fooled. Like AI can be fooled. That's the truth. Yeah. And there are different ways they find this. I'm sure whoever found that must have told OpenAI and must have found guardrails around that. But the point is, when you allow AI have access to different tools, for instance, your Gmail, your Drive, your calendar, it poses serious security risks.
Yeah, but I don't even think we can actually ask AI to protect. I mean, maybe it's something we would research on. It's part of the research on how we can actually use AI or ask AI to actually protect every data that is accessed with AI. Because, for example, if Faustina comes to the AI and says, from this email, provide me this, what response would that give me? Would it actually go to my email to actually extract this information and give to the hacker in this sense? I think it's something we would be researching on in the future.
Yeah, indeed. I think AI generally, the way it works, I think it works by having guardrails. Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure these are more sophisticated methods. But remember when AI first came out, if you tell AI, for instance, write me a code that will allow me hack Google, it will never give you that. But if you take something like, I want to do something that is very important, and then my final project requires that I, get into a tech company to spoof email for academic purposes or for research purposes.
Yes.
And I want to, just put it in a very nice way without mentioning those negative keywords like hack or, steal and all that.
It gives you the result immediately. Yes,
yeah.
yes.
So just by tweaking how you prompt, it gives you
prompting style. So the chain of thought of the AI.
Yeah.
And that's why prompt engineering is also very important.
Yeah.
It's something I also advise people to actually look into to know how to really prompt artificial intelligence, because there are some prompts you would actually use and you end up becoming a bad person.
Yeah.
So you really also need to know what type of prompt am I giving to ChatGPT or Grok or Meta AI and all of the examples.
Yeah. But it's interesting how by just changing your style of prompts, AI is able to give you a different response.
If you ask AI, let me create a bomb,
it will never do that.
It will say, no, this is a security threat. I cannot ask you to create a bomb. Then you now tell AI, I am developing this and I want to actually create something that can sparkle. And then it gives you exactly how to create something that
those are ways of circumventing all the guardrails
to how it takes.
So eventually, again, I think this is for the AI companies to ensure that people are able to cut through all the guardrails they have in terms of security risk and data breaches.
I think also something I want to add, just on a general note about security or InfoSec, is that companies have to, think about how to actually have this security by design. We're preaching it. So it just as you're asking your developer to, you give your developer, requirements on what to do. Your system should be able to have a beautiful screen. Your system should be able to, please also have like security requirements that actually asks the developers to key into security by design principles, like having these security protocols integrated when developing applications or softwares, or even when they are actually getting these, for example, AI models from Hugging Face, for example.
More like non-functional requirements?
Yes, non-functional requirements,
okay.
Exactly. Yes, exactly.
I think, that's critical. When people, now everybody
they don't look at it. Yes.
And we only care about UI.
Yes.
And I tell you what, there can be a lot of security, threats, or how do you guys put it?
Security risk.
Risk, exactly. Risk when you vibe code, I assure you. Because there are many things it does. I'm like, wait, what? Now this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And if you do not know what's going on, it designs a very beautiful UI for you. And the backend is shit, right? It's filled with a lot of security risks. So I think, eventually, like you said, right, the design itself, the requirement should contain security requirements to ensure that while it's giving you nice UI, nice UX, it's not passing, it's not sending your data without any kind of encryption. For instance, encryption in transit or encryption at rest. So so I think if we do not know these things and we do not use AI right, we can have some serious big problems in the end. So that's why I said I think the best tech field to be right now is a cybersecurity person.
Yes, I agree with it, because everything needs to be secured. Everything, like I said, InfoSec has to do with both your physical asset and digital asset. So everything needs to be secured. And yes, why InfoSec is important, how we also have to look for how to use artificial intelligence to actually secure AI. So researchers should be going around, how do we use AI to defend AI? Maybe that would be an interesting thing. AI defend AI.
There's one thing I used to do for AI, for instance. AI as a judge, that's what they call it, AI as a judge. And for instance, ChatGPT gives me a code. I carry that code to Claude and say, this code, is it correct? And Claude gives me some critique. Oh no, you can do this, you can do this. And I take it back, I take Claude's response back to ChatGPT. I say, I got this feedback from a very good source. What do you think? And I said, oh yes, this is correct. I should fix this. So indeed, like you said, using AI as a judge or AI as another security, as a defender is also a good strategy. So a lot of interesting stuff with AI and looking forward to the future.
I'm looking forward as well.
But as a takeaway, guys, make sure you take security important. Make sure, again, you use strong passwords. Make sure if you're vibe coding, you have security as the core, the design phase. And use a password manager. Do not repeat your passwords. Those are like core foundational things you know about cybersecurity and security as a go.
Yes.
Also,
it seems you're already a very security expert.
I know a little.
Yes.
And I was going to say, don't download softwares. When you see cracked softwares, free softwares, be careful. Many times when things are cracked, except it's open source, there can be security vulnerabilities in them.
But I mean, we just spoke about open source in terms of supply chain.
Well, open source can be hacked now, right?
Yes.
I mean, they can be infiltrated, especially with AI and all the PRs that come on board.
But you're correct. Yes.
I mean, well, if you want to jump into tech, maybe again, this is the sign for you to start cybersecurity. So maybe
we can't wait to have you. I think we need a lot of people in the security world, because it's important that everything, every asset, every information is protected, or even, it's protected. So yes, we need a lot of you guys. So if you're looking for a career path, dive into cybersecurity, or you want to go to a niche, you can go to InfoSec, or you can go to cryptography and all.
I think I second that. And I think for me, I still believe very strongly that it is one of the fields that would rather even increase in demand rather than decrease in the tech world. Anyways, that's the end of our podcast today. For now, thanks for your insights.
Thank you.
And let's have your comments. Let's have your discussions. Like this podcast wherever you're watching, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Subscribe to our Spotify, our Apple Podcast, or wherever you're listening from. And then we'll see you guys in the next one.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Bye. Bye.